Today we're going to not ignore positioning yourself as an expert in the marketplace. If you are an author, a coach, a consultant, or someone who has a message and you want to get paid for your advice, then this video is for you. I'm going to be sharing with you what some of the top leaders share on being able to have people to come to you, to buy from you, to be interested in the advice that you have. After coaching entrepreneurs since 2017 and being a professional speaker for 9 years, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the strategies that I've found have been extremely helpful along the ways, as well as some mistakes that I wish I knew when I was just getting started. So when I say position yourself as an expert, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you look at an expert, there's different types of experts out there. You have the results expert, and you have that is usually what a lot of people think of. They think of someone who has results that because they've achieved something, they've accomplished something, that they're able to now teach others how to do what they've done. And that's part of it. Like when I was first getting started in business, before I had like 15 failed business attempts, and then finally when I found my first business mentor, who was a millionaire mentor, and he started teaching me lessons about financial laws and how they work, and I began to realize the things that I was missing. I was like, this is incredible. And then finally had the 16th business attempt become a family business that has generated 6 figures a year through that. But now that could be a result that people would be like, hey, that's of interest to me. I want to be able to do that. And I haven't been working at a 9-to-5 job for many years. Been in full-time entrepreneurship, serving people, and that's been the primary source of income. And now being able to provide a team, and I've had a team since 2014, being able to work together, not having to be a solopreneur anymore. That is, these are some results that people may be like, wow, I want to maybe quit the 9-to-5, or I want to be able to increase or grow my business, get past that 6-figure mark, or even just to replace the income I'm making in my job and to be able to do my passion, my calling full time. That could be a result people are interested in. But that's not the only type of expert. There's multiple experts. There's another, what I like to call a reporter expert. And a reporter is one who goes and finds all of the top leaders of an industry, top leaders of a subject, a topic, a result, a solution, and starts interviewing and reporting on your discoveries, reporting on what you found. And there's a lot of value in reporting. People love to listen to those who are curating the content and ideas of different leaders and thought leaders, and they're extracting them from others. Some of the most watched views and videos of different experts and leaders are ones that they've been interviewed on someone else's platform about their subject of expertise. And so you can do that. If there's a subject, if you're just getting started, it's one of the best ways to break into an industry is to start interviewing a lot of the top leaders and experts on that field. And then you have a lot of value to be able to share with others. You could either get paid for the skill or knowledge you already have, or a skill you can easily acquire and you can develop and then get paid for that advice. So why is it so important to position yourself as an expert? Partly, one is because people want to do business with those who they perceive as an authority on the subject. People will have preference. There's no price checking that people do. These price comparison is like, oh, well, what is your course or your event or your speaker compared to these people? All of that goes away when you are in a category of your own. When you have the perception of value, a perception of authority. And what happens, it's very fascinating. There's this concept that the more that anybody gets paid in any fields, any industry, you're going to find that the more that someone gets paid on those higher classes of impact, the less they're getting paid for what they do, and the more they're getting paid on who they are. And some people hate it, some people don't like it, but rather than questioning or complaining about whether this should be the way it is. I believe it's best to not look at the world the way we think it should be, but look at the world rather in the way it actually is. And when we stop resisting this law of wealth and we start realizing and recognizing that it exists, and we start to see, okay, what does that mean for being getting paid not based on what they do, but who they are? What this could mean for you is if you're an entrepreneur that may be struggling, or you're getting your business off the ground and you're wondering, how do I get this to fit? How do I get this piece to work? And a lot of entrepreneurs, they make this huge mistake in not knowing what business they're actually in. And what do I mean by that? A lot of, let's say authors, for instance, authors think they're in the book writing business. But if you're an author, you're not in the book writing business, you're in the book marketing business. Because if you don't learn how to market your book, then nobody will know who you are. You can have an incredible message and impactful information that could completely transform people's lives, their business, their health, whatever the case is. But if nobody knows who you are or that you exist through marketing, then your message will die on your lips. And what would the world be like without your message? The hurt, the pain, like that's unacceptable. So what entrepreneurs need to understand is whatever the business you are, whatever you sell, you're not in that book, that product creating business or book writing business or speaking. If you're in speaking, you're not in the speaking business. You're in your speech marketing business. Because when you understand that you are a marketer, then you're able to get your message out to others. And why do I say that? Because so many people focus a lot of their attention on the art, the creation. They're like, as entrepreneurs, are very innovative and creative, and we like to think of solutions. And so we hone in on a skill. A lot of times it starts with, there's a skill, a passion, a talent. Maybe it's learning how to speak or communicate, or whether it's how to do teaching, or how to maybe make clothing, or do a specific food or a recipe, or there's some skill that we hone in on and we really, really like. And then we think by being extremely good at that, then people are going to buy. Have you ever heard the phrase, the product will sell itself? It's a complete lie. Products don't sell themselves. Every product that exists has to be marketed and sold. It's without exception. Now, when you're good, you'll have a higher likelihood of having referrals, but if you don't have systems in place for how to bring referrals on autopilot, so you're encouraging, facilitating, and even at times educating your community on how to bring people back to you, it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen on its own. Another lie that happens, you build it, they will come, like that field of dreams. It's a complete lie. It's like, it requires marketing stamina to be able to go out there, and when things aren't going the way you'd like, to just have that stamina to keep analyzing, revising, remobilizing, trying something new again and again and repeat until it works. And I say that because who you are, or more importantly, who you are perceived to be in the marketplace, is a lot of times more important is a much greater contributing factor to how much you get paid, rather than how well are you at what you do. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe we should be able to do things well and do it extremely well. But you can be the best. But if nobody knows you, then you're not going to get paid as a result of that. So people think like, well, I can't charge $500 for a course, $1,000 for a course, or whatever for a course, or maybe they're speaking. Maybe you're thinking about raising your speaking fees. They're like, I don't know if I could charge $3,000 a talk or $10,000 a talk, or whatever the case may be. But really, the people who are getting who are getting paid $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 and easier, it's not because they're better speakers. It's not because they're more experienced. It's because of their positioning as an expert, and they are perceived as being a person of influence. There's a book I would highly recommend called A Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. Amazing book. And it basically shows how when you are a key person of influence, then people will do business with you. People will come to you. You'll have an oversubscribed business. And he talks about principles that you could apply there. So when I'm looking at an expert, another way you can look at that is sometimes being an expert doesn't mean it doesn't mean you know everything or that you know everything there is on the subject. That's not an expert. An expert could simply be if you know 4th grade math and you're teaching 3rd graders how to do 3rd grade math, you'd be an expert at 3rd grade math. Because you could be 1 step, 2, or 3 steps ahead of the people you're seeking to teach, and that is perceived as expertise as well. It's not extremely difficult to be able to position yourself as such, but it is extremely profitable when you do put your time and attention in things that matter most. So what are some ways that you can, I remember one of the first times I was exposed to this concept of positioning and marketing, I was at OfferMinds. I was at an event that Steve Larsen was teaching, and Steve Larsen is an 8-figure entrepreneur. He sat next to Russell Brunson for about 3 years, building all his funnels, helping them grow to being a $300 million a year company called ClickFunnels. And Steve Larsen worked closely with Russell Brunson, and now he's doing this event, and I'm sitting here, and I'm able to ask him like all these questions that I have, and so he's mentoring me through this process. And he said something I'll never forget. He said he was talking to Frank Kern, who's another strong entrepreneur, and they were just going back and forth on this conversation of positioning. I'm like, what is that? I've never even heard that before. And Frank Kern's like, yeah, I really think that positioning is one of the most overlooked and the most powerful parts of marketing that almost no one is talking about. And Steve Larsen was like, Frank Kern was excited that Steve Larsen was so familiar with positioning and they could go deep on that. And I just remember sitting there thinking like, what is positioning? What does that mean? No one's talking about it. It's overlooked and it's really powerful, and it's something that's so simple you could do that it's like a little hinge that could swing the largest doors. Like I want to do that little swinge, that high leverage activity. And I didn't understand, but for a while I was still like, there's something to positioning, but I didn't quite figure it out. So today I'm going to be sharing with you what I wish I learned or knew when I was getting started. Positioning yourself as an expert is basically sharing that you are a credible source, or that you are an authority on an area of expertise. Something, whether you are a thought leader or a leader in an industry. What that means is you don't have to have, it's not about being famous among so many different subjects and categories. It's about whatever your niche, whatever your market, your industry that you are seeking to serve, that you are perceived as being the go-to person to solve a problem in that area. I really like how Proverbs 22:29 says, "Seest thou a man that is diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before average men." And so when you are diligent, every business, when you look at it, a business is solving a problem. It's a system for solving a valuable problem. And when you find that problem and you get really, really good at solving it, and you start positioning yourself as that problem solver, then those around you, the kings, the category kings of different industries, will go to you to do business with you. And you'll be able to serve the higher classes, as Jesus said in his parable that of the wedding garment, that those that were bidden to go, he says, go to the highways first, the higher classes, the wealthier classes. Then his next call was to go to the halt, the lame, the poor, the blind, the sick. But you go to the people with resources, with influence, with credibility, with abundance. You go to the kings first, the higher classes, and then you allow their wealth of influence, their wealth of knowledge, their wealth of connections and relationships to fund or supply your work to labor for the lower classes. And it's a really powerful concept, because it's the same thing when you're launching a book or launching a course, or you have a program that you are launching. You want to go to people who have already the ear of your dream audience, and you speak to them, and by reaching them first, they'll be able to bring their entire online community to say yes to your offer, to be able to start buying your products and solutions. But first, you want to be identified as someone who is trustworthy, someone who is credible. And this is really powerful, because I love King Solomon. When we look at the business model of King Solomon, and yes, King Solomon had a business, he was the wisest and wealthiest man that this world that ever lived in the world. And I've actually built my entire business off of the business model of King Solomon. So there's lessons through his life and through his business in the early years that do you think that if we applied some of the lessons from King Solomon's business to your business, that you might learn a thing or two? Most definitely. One of the things that we see that was unique about King Solomon is when he was speaking to the Queen of Sheba in First Kings. It was interesting what she said about how he was wiser than others. In 1 Kings 10:1 it says, "And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions." So she basically comes with ships and ships of treasures. And it was over $250 million in the equivalent of the gold that she transferred over just for a consulting session, that she's asking him all these questions and Solomon is answering. Now, I want you to really think about what can we learn from this in our business, in your business? Because one, what was it that attracted the Queen of Sheba to come to Solomon? Did Solomon go out to go knock on her kingdom doorsteps and say, "Hey, I've got this advice and this business that you want to see some of my wares"? No, he wasn't doing that. He was in a part of what I call attraction marketing, where he was attracting high-paying clients on demand. But how did he do it? It was the fame of Solomon. It was the reputation of Solomon. It was the reputation, the perception. It was the stories, the branding of Solomon that attracted this high-paying client into his business. And we know he has a business because later on in the chapter, we see that Solomon had actually 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse 23. "So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom, and all the earth sought to Solomon." So they were coming to him, the kings of the earth. He was attracting these businesses. He was a consultant to his contemporaries because he ran a kingdom. So it makes sense that he counseled and consulted with those who also ran kingdoms. He was a counselor of kings. And to hear his wisdom, which God has put in his heart. Verse 25. "And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver, vessels of gold, and garments, and armor, and spices, horses, and mules, and a rate year by year." So not only did Solomon have a consulting fee, he charged a premium for his advice, but he also had multiple kings that were paying him a rate year by year. This is a subscription program. This is a continuity program. He had an annual fee for his membership of advice and consultations. So there's some lessons that we could learn if you want to succeed like Solomon. But it was, some of it we see that he had premium pricing. That your pricing is actually one of the contributing factors that positions you as a person of influence, as someone to be listened to. Because the truth is, if you're the cheapest, nobody expects you to be the best. And if you're the best, no one expects you to be the cheapest. So when you undervalue your time, when you undervalue your solutions of what you have to offer, then people automatically think that like their perception of your value is not going to go higher than yours. In order for others to see value in you, you must first see value in yourself, see value in your advice, see value in what you have to offer and who you have it to offer. Number one, Solomon, he worked with premium people who had large discretionary funds, people who were willing to, not just willing, but were able to pay a premium for his advice. That's a really big thing, because if you try to sell anything to broke, like if you're trying to sell your advice to broke people, or people more so who have a broke mentality, not about Like people think that they're poor because they don't have money. It's not true. You're poor because you don't have money because you're poor. And what do I mean by that? Poverty is a mindset. Broken beliefs creates broken bank accounts. Finances is the result of the thoughts and beliefs that we have regarding abundance in our life, abundance in our skills, learning high income skills and the beliefs that go along with that, or thinking if you believe money is hard to get, or there's a lot of faith that states that you'll never make more than whatever you think is a lot of money. And so if we think it's a lot, then we're never going to charge for that or reach for it or have that. So we got to start with the mind. That's why advice is so powerful, because you can shift people's beliefs, and their beliefs will determine their behaviors, and their behaviors determine their blessings. So if you want to bring rich blessings in the lives of people, start with teaching them how to have rich beliefs and abundance mindset. And that's what Solomon did, is he shared his wisdom in the book of Proverbs, and he shared he was a prolific content creator, and he published, in Kings it says that he published 3,000 Proverbs and his songs 1,005. So he's a prolific content creator, but he had premium prices, which is a very important part of building credibility and that perception of value. Even people who pay, Jesus said people who pay attention. In Matthew 6:20, he says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So people's hearts or value follow the pocketbook. So part of the value that you actually provide is charging a premium for your advice, for your speaking, for your book, for your coaching, for your course, whatever it is. When people pay, they get their money's worth, and they're willing to pay more for it. But if the only thing that you have available is these free and cheap stuff, then you're going to attract a lot of free and cheap-minded people who are looking for those. And even if you have people who want to work closer with you or want to pay a premium or to have more access or go deeper with you, and you don't give them that opportunity, then you're really leaving a lot on the table. Not only does having premium prices actually position you more as an authority, but it makes it allows people to go deeper with you, and you can attract more successful clients. And then as you help those clients, you're then able to use their story, their testimony, their success as another way to position you as an expert. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 5 credibility creators that you can apply and apply to building credibility or position yourself as a credible, reputable source of advice and information. Because number one, if people do not believe that you're credible, or if people don't if you're not a trusted advisor, then you could be spewing out advice all day, every day, but guess what? Nobody's going to act on it. Nobody's going to listen to you. And how many people here want to speak into the air and not impact people's lives? No. If you have a message because you want to do something that matters. You want to make a difference in people's lives. And one of the best ways for you to make that difference is to be perceived as an expert or a trusted advisor, so that when people trust your advice, they apply your advice and they are transformed by your advice. Does that make sense? So let's look at, there are components that create credibility. And here is one credibility creator. Number one is clarity. Clarity is the first credibility creator, because if you are unclear on how you help people and what you do and how you're able to deliver the result or talk about the problem and what people's lives are after they receive it, then nobody's going to want to go further with you. I was just being interviewed on a podcast earlier today, the Pat Miller Show, and in this podcast he asked me, he's like, hey, who are you and what do you do? And I said, hi, my name is Enoch Leffingwell, and I help speakers, authors, coaches, and other high-level entrepreneurs to get paid a premium for their advice through crafting a signature speech, one speech they could use on multiple platforms without losing its power of persuasion. And his eyes got big, his jaw dropped a little. He's like, that is so needed. That is especially for those who have a message. And you can tell that he's like, this is necessary and clear. So because it's clear who I am, who I help, speakers, authors, coaches, and other high-level entrepreneurs, and how I help them get paid for their advice by crafting a signature speech. One speech they could use on multiple platforms without losing its power of persuasion. It's like, okay, I need that. When I say that to people at events, they lean in and they're like, tell me more. I need that. How can I get more clear? Because one of the things I find a lot of speakers or coaches or communicators, they go on and they speak, they talk for so long, and sometimes when you ask them, so what do you do? How do you help? And they're like, well, I let me tell you a story. And then they go into this great detail about all these mistakes and things that didn't work and why it didn't happen, and leading up to, like, their dog got ran over and their daughter's like not with them right now, and you're like, and you're just kind of listening like, so you're telling me you help who? It's like I got lost in the sauce. And if you're unclear, then people are like, who wants to receive advice or training from someone who's not able to speak clearly about, one, what is the result you're going to give me, and two, why should I listen to you? Or if you're so unclear on how you can help me, then how can I be certain that when I pay you, you're able to help me to get this result that you claim? So clarity is one of the best creators of credibility. There's a really powerful lesson that I learned. I was listening to a podcast by Andy Stanley. It was a leadership podcast, and he was explaining how clarity is king. And even if you don't really know the skill, even if you don't really understand the situation, whoever can speak with the most clarity on a subject, on a problem, is perceived as being the leader in that area. And if you can speak most clearly about the problem, then people will accept that you have the solution to the problem if you're more clear than anyone else. Because why? Because whoever has the most clarity wins. You got that? When you're looking at your competitors or other people who may be selling something similar or sharing in a similar way, when people are asking, why should I go with you as opposed to these people? Know that clarity is king. And when you have greater clarity than your competitors, that's where you could be the best of the best and forget the rest and fulfill your God-given assignment in the marketplace. So that's one thing that I would encourage you, is to get really clear on your messaging, clear on how you speak. Learn to speak clear, compelling, and in concise ways, because currency is divided among the communicators with the greatest clarity in the marketplace. So, credibility creator number one is clarity. Credibility creator number two is your student success stories. It is like, a lot of people think like, well, I can't really teach or mentor. Who am I to coach someone on my area that I'm knowledgeable in, because I don't have credentials. I don't have a degree. I don't have a certificate. I'm not certified to do something. A lot of people are looking for permission for them to step into their calling and start teaching and sharing or speaking on areas that they clearly have expertise in. But I'll tell you this, your credentials are not what you think they are. A lot of times people don't care about where you went to school, what your degrees are, or those things. What they really care about is, can you help me to accomplish the result that I desire most and that you claim to be able to help? That's really what they're asking for. And when you go to the dentist and you're sitting on their chair and they're about to do surgery, about to like extract a tooth or do something, do you say, whoa, hold on, stop. Where did you go to school? And how do I know that I can trust you? What was your GPA in college? No, you don't do that. You recognize that they are in the place of authority, even by virtue of teaching and educating on that. And like manner, I remember I had a friend of mine. He has a health clinic, a health retreat, and he's helping people with like incurable diseases, people who have cancer, people who have strong liver issues. diabetes, that are given weeks and months to live, sent home, just totally rejected by the doctors, and they're sent over to him. And as he's able to help people, they come to his place with late stages of cancer, and they leave his place with no more cancer anymore. And he says, like, I didn't go to college, I didn't go to university, I don't have a degree in this stuff. My credentials, I'll never forget what he said. He said, my credentials are the results of my students. And when he's able to share student after student after student who had a life-threatening disease, who were rejected by the doctors, came to his clinic, then the doctor said that they were clear. And it's not one, it's not two, it's not three, but stacks and stacks of people. So he has people coming to him on autopilot, like King Solomon, that are coming because they hear the message and the reputation precedes him. Even now, I'm speaking about his results because of how clear he is and how consistent his student successes are. But now what does this mean for you? Is your credentials is the success stories of your students. So what I would do is find people who you have helped and start collecting their stories. Be really intentional. If you help someone, if they say something that's really impactful, then repeat that story. Like I was on another podcast interview with Vea, and she has a show called Create Your Influence. And as I spoke, she was interviewing me about my new book, I Want to Mentor, Now What Do I Do? Available on Amazon now. She was talking, and when I stopped talking, she was like, wow, that is so valuable. That is so good. Towards the end of the interview, she's like, I'm actually going to go through this a second time for my own benefit so I can learn these things. And she's like, I am so glad to have you as a guest on my show. This has been so powerful. And it's like, it was far exceeded her expectations. Now, why do I say that to you? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to find those clips of where she made those comments. I'm going to take them out and then put that on to my speaking page on EnochLeffingwell.com. On the speaking page where it's like what other show hosts have said about working with Enoch. And when there is a section of people who have their testimonies of how they've worked with me, those are the stories that you want to use. Because yeah, everybody's going to share his own praises, but Proverbs 27 and verse 2 says, let another man praise thee, another, and not thine own lips. So what's really powerful about your success stories of your students is that they be one of the greatest champions of heralding the success of your students, people who you've helped, and talk about where they were, how they met you, and then where they are now, and you're able to rejoice and celebrate their stories. And by sharing that, people are listening to their experience, and your ideal audience is putting themselves in their situation, and they're relating to that story, and it's already positioned you as the mentor. So now when you're telling about people who you've helped get the result that your audience, your prospect really desires most, then they're like, wow, not only has this person the result, but the person is able to help others like me to get the result. And if this mentor can help these people, then surely they can help me. Does that make sense? So you may be listening to this and say, hey, I don't have stories yet. Chances are you probably do have some stories from someone. Even if you serve them for free, even if they didn't pay you, you probably have some stories of someone that you've helped in that area. But let's say you didn't. That's okay. You can offer a service for free. You can go help people to get a simple result or help them in some capacity in exchange for a testimonial. Why? Because when you're getting started, when you're in the middle, and when you're towards really advancing your career, testimonials, student success stories is one of the greatest marketing assets that you possibly have to share with other people. And why is marketing so important? Because if you cannot market them, you cannot serve them. So learning to capture those success stories and share them with other people will be the second clarity creator. Now, another credibility creator would be being a book author. If you want to be seen as an authority in a subject, what I would do if entering into a new niche or a new area, one of the best things is to really just author a book. Write a book on that subject, on the industry, on that area, because when you have a book, you are automatically this thing called an author. And why is being an author so important? Because literally, a book helps you put the author in authority. The root word of authority is author. So in this culture that we have, that we live in, book authors are automatically identified as an authority, as a figure of someone who really knows what they're talking about. It doesn't have to be a big, long, huge book. It doesn't have to be complicated. Books are a lot more simple than you would expect. You want to find a mentor who has a result that you want, figure out what they did, and then pay them whatever they charge to find out what they did, and follow that and continue until you have the results that you want. If by finding a book mentor, you'll be able to pump one out very quickly. But having a book is going to automatically position you as an author on that subject. Then podcasts, interviews, people, media, they're going to want you to talk on their show about your book and that area of expertise. Then your book can be optimized when you're really clear. I teach my students to speak messages and content that actually brings business back to them, that can share in a way that makes people want to work closer with you, works deeper with you, so that when you have that content in your book becomes an incredible lead generation tool. It's one of the greatest levers that you can have in your business. That's something that you can introduce people to, and that book will be generating high income, high paying clients to your business constantly, coming in, calling, looking for more, and being very qualified. The people who come from books that you've authored are some of the best clients, who pay the most, who are the easiest to sell because they're already sold, they already know, like, and trust you. And it's an incredible filtering tool for all the trouble clients who would be a very difficult time if they ended up paying you and then they're blowing up your support ticket, your customer support, and it's all a big headache. If you want to avoid those, write a book and send your book out to others. Dan Kennedy requires anyone who he's going to coach or consult with, and he gets like $100,000 consulting fees, large fees, and he requires everybody to first read his book before, and send him a fax before he even considers them being being one of his clients. So a book is a powerful way to filter and to be perceived as an authority, because it literally puts the word author in authority. So you may want to consider that. A fourth credibility creator is having celebrity endorsements. And what I mean by that is not celebrities that are just widely known among the world, but among your niche, among your industry. Now, when you're thinking big names like The Rock or something, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are perceived as leaders in an industry. Those are much easier to reach out to, much easier to contact, to get on their platforms or have them on your platforms, and when you work with them or have their endorsements, when someone who your ideal audience respects, knows, trusts, and has influence upon or has been mentored by, when someone who's a mentor of your potential client endorses you and says, hey, Enoch, his strategies work, this is great, if you have an opportunity to work with him, definitely take it. When you see that, instantly there's this transference of trust, of influence, and ability. I have people who come in because of the podcast that I show up on. I ask, like, what prompted you to sign up for my mentorship program? And they're like, well, because you spoke on this podcast and I trust that person, and therefore if they recommend you, I trust you. It's like, you see how fast that is? It's like within seconds that trust is transferred, that I didn't have to build from scratch or start over. Or it's like, who is this person? He with these big ears. He looks like he's young, and how is he going to be able to teach me about mentorship or speaking? And then when they hear the story, when they hear who I've helped or how I've helped, or they see that their trusted advisor is introducing me and recommending me or being benefited by the things that I'm sharing, then they're like, oh, I could do this, because those celebrity endorsements make a really big difference. That's why people often, this is like Jesus said, go to the higher classes first, where if you're launching a book, you're launching a course, you're launching something, then go to the celebrities first. They often give them a free copy of the book and say, hey, I'd love for you to write the foreword, or I'd love for you to write to write a statement or a review or something about the book. And then they put that on Amazon, they put that on any of their sales copy, anywhere that they're selling it. They're writing all the people who endorse you and your strategies, your principles. And as you collect those endorsements, you'll have different segments of their audience who are immediately trusting you and jumping on board with what you have to offer, and then you're able to transform their lives. Does that sound simple? Does that make sense? So that's, and I want to be clear that just because you don't have any or all of these things, you don't need all of them in order to be positioned as an expert. But having these, I'm sharing with you, having these will help you tremendously, but it's not required to have all of them. And also keep in mind, it's a journey. You will have them one by one, step by step, and you'll start to, as you accumulate this portfolio, or as you accumulate some of these components, your credibility will increase. But just know, if you don't have everything, it doesn't mean you're behind. You're just early in the process. You're not a failure, you're just beginning. And you don't have to compare your beginning to someone else's end or their middle. You are perfect in your stage. But now I'm giving you awareness of this, because awareness is a first step to real progress. Now that you've been made aware, you could just start to collect these one by one and stack them on. And after a few days or months, you'll be able to look back and you're like, wow, there's more than I ever thought I could accomplish. So just be encouraged by that, my friends. So a fifth credibility creator is association with industry leaders. Association. Endorsement is when they're recommending you. Association is when you're just perceived as being associated with them. And what that could look like is platforms are powerful. Is either you are being interviewed on or you can interview them, like the reporter expert I was talking about. One of the benefits, the side effects of reporting experts, is that you become positioned as being an expert. Because you have all of these influential leaders on your show, then other people see you and they're like, oh wow, you interviewed this person, you've talked with this person, and all these people that they trust and they know, like, and they enjoy, and you're like, whoa. If you're so connected, they automatically assume you're part of, like, quote unquote, the club, or you're a part of this higher kind of community of mentors, of leaders, of authors, of entrepreneurs that they respect. And therefore it transfers respect to you. So being a reporter is extremely valuable for being able to have them on your platform. And then you gain skills that you otherwise wouldn't, and you're able to impact lives through extracting the lessons from them and shared with your message. And because you have an audience, most people are willing to say yes to getting on your platform. Even people like Gary Vee, I'm just amazed. Like, he's got so much opportunity, and yet he says, if you have over 50 episodes, I'm willing to show up and speak on your platform. Most of even the most untouchable or people that you think would be so difficult to have on your show, most of them would be willing to say yes if you ask them, because you have an audience, they have a message, and they have what you want, you have what they want, and it's a win-win scenario. You're not just taking, you're actually coming with a gift on a silver platter, and you're providing access to a group of your audience that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. I remember Violet was in my community, and I was asking her, like, hey Violet, what's your number one biggest problem in your business right now? And she's like, finding millionaire Christian entrepreneurs that I can interview in my podcast. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, and I started thinking, I'm like, well, that would be easy to help her with. I know a lot of 7 and 8 figure faith-based entrepreneurs who would love to be on someone's podcast. Well, let me see if I can make some connections. And I shared with her a list of maybe like 10 7-figure, 8-figure entrepreneurs that are faith-based that I know speak on podcasts. And out of those 10, she was probably able to interview like 4 or 5 of them. And it was neat to be able to see them showing up on her show, on her platform, and both of them posting on their sides. I'm like, what a great connection that's being made there. So it's because of that association that it's able to share. And she's like, how were you able to find so many 7-figure entrepreneurs? How did you meet these people? And then I shared with her the principles in my book, I Want to Mentor, Now What Do I Do? Because in there I have an entire chapter dedicated to networking on purpose and finding these master mentors who are experts in their field, leading industries, and how to get close to them, how to get access to them in ways that they would love to be able to help support you in your mission in bringing those endorsements and speaking on your show, or just helping you with what you need most. So you can get my book at iwanttomentorbook.com if that's something that's of interest to you. But so number one, it's like the 5th credibility creator is association with industry leaders. But if we look at like 5A, that would be doing interviews on your personal platform. But 5B, the second part, is what I call OPP. See, you're like, what is OPP? Many of us as entrepreneurs have heard about OPM, leveraging other people's money to grow your business, but almost no one is talking about OPP. And I believe OPP is one of the greatest underutilized tools that entrepreneurs can use. Why? Because it can build greater influence, income, impact, and there's no limits to this. So OPP, what does that stand for? It stands for other people's platforms. Yes, it's good to have them speak on your platform, but there's so much more power when you're speaking on other people's platforms, when you're speaking on their show, on their podcast. And when I say platform, what do I mean by that? I'm talking about like a YouTube channel, a podcast, maybe it could be TV, or on their blog, or their community. If you're going live on their Instagram, these are examples of other people's platforms. And when you leverage that, you have borrowed their audience. You have now been seen on the stages, where one thing that people do for positioning themselves as an expert is, I want you to like pay attention to this. They'll say that they have an example. Like when I got Expert Secrets, and there was, on Expert Secrets, there is a page of different examples, student success stories, to position this as a successful book. And one of the success stories was this little girl, Emily Shea, who was like 9 years old, and it says that she has shared the stages with people like Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, and other high-level entrepreneurs, where I'm like, this little girl has been speaking and sharing stages with who? And when I hear that, I'm just like, okay, there's something to that. Like, I lean in. And that was probably the first time that I noticed it, was in this book. But I'm sharing this for you, because what I want is, I love when my students come to me and they're like, hey, Nick, I'm seeing it everywhere. The whole world is different. The internet doesn't look the same anymore. Business makes sense now, where before it was so confusing for me to get my business going and how to speak it to others. But now the strategies that you're teaching, I'm starting to see them. My eyes have been open, and I'm not just being sold to, I'm actually studying the messaging, the marketing, and I'm understanding why they're working and what they're doing and how I can apply it to my business. And then they come to me with their results. I'm like, this is so rewarding, because one of the things you could do is you could say, like, if you shared this, like, think back, if you've been speaking, like, I've been speaking professionally for 9 years. So looking back at who are some of the stages that I've shared with, or the stages I've spoken to, and especially people who your ideal audience would recognize and perceive as being credible, authoritative individuals, or key people of influence to your audience. Because really, influence is in the value, is in the perception of the beholder. So it doesn't have to be someone who's known by everybody, like Hollywood celebrities. They could just be like a celebrity in your niche or your micro niche, and those are the people that you're able to reach. And when there's that message and market match, people say yes to your offer again and again and again. So the fifth credibility creator is association with industry leaders. I remember there was another time where I was talking to my friend Lionel. He has, he wasn't my friend at the time. I was getting to know him. I was getting to understand, like, who is he? What does he do? And we have a similar passion in teaching business based on biblical principles. And as I was talking to Lionel, I was just connecting with him and just want to know, a question that I teach in my book is to take me to your mentor method, where one of the ways to meet master mentors is to ask people who mentored you. That question is so powerful, it unlocks incredible opportunities that you have not yet to really fathom the doors that it will open for you. But who mentored you? So I just asked him, who's your favorite mentors? And he's like, well, I really like the morning meetups, entrepreneurship, daily morning entrepreneur speakers. And I'm like, okay, I know who's in charge of that. And he says, I really like Sean Cannell for video work, video editing and video stuff. I'm like, oh cool, he's with Video Influencers. I'm like, all right. And he listed some other people. So what I did is I went through some of my photos and I typed in their names, and I sent him a photo with me and David Shands, who is an 8-figure entrepreneur who's started Morning Meetup, and he schedules a lot of, he's a reporter by far. He's one of the best interviewers that I know of. He's got a great YouTube channel, David Never Sleeps, with millions of views. And then I've got a photo with him because we're in a mastermind together. We sat next to him just a few months ago for that week, and then Lionel was like, whoa, you know David? And I was like, yeah. And we're in the mastermind together. And then I looked up Sean Cannell in my photos. I sent him the photo of me and Sean Cannell when we were at the influencer event. We're both learning this influencer industry at this seminar. And I really like and respect Sean Cannell because he's also faith-based, and he has a YouTube channel that reaches millions of people, and he teaches you how to grow your influence through video online. And he has great YouTube trainings and gear breakdown. I really trust him. I prefer my videos because I perceive Sean Cannell as an authority on video. When I'm going to YouTube and I'm looking up a tutorial and I see Sean Cannell's face, I see Daryl Eve's face, I see this person's face, Nick Nimmons, and I'm looking at different people's names on YouTube, I have a preference towards Sean Cannell. I always click his face. Why? Because he's positioned in my mind as the expert in video influence, and I want to listen to him before listening to anyone else. There's not even a question or much of a decision. It's already predetermined because he's an authority in my perception. Does that make sense? So I've got this photo with him, and I send it to my friend Lionel, and Lionel's like, whoa, you are in the room with a lot of top players, and instantly you see that built trust, it built rapport. It's like, and it built rapport with me and him, not just him with me, but I'm like, hey, we listen to similar people. So I'm exposed to similar information. Now we have a deeper connection. Does that make sense? And it makes it easier to do business together. And I've been able to speak on his podcast and share with his audience, and I've shared his episode on our audience, and we've been able to help each other, and it started a strategic partnership that I richly enjoy and I'm grateful for. But I want you to see that association with industry leaders is one of the things that can position you as an authority, and it opens up doors. There's another time I was at the mastermind. That everyone in this room paid the price to enter this mastermind is set at $155,000 a year. So there's about 100 of us in this mastermind. And when I was there, I was talking to one of the brothers. I was just getting to know who everybody was. It was like my first time. And I meet this brother who was talking about his mentor, and his name is Odell Bazell. And I was like, what do you do? He says, well, I've made almost $1 million speaking to colleges, and I teach speakers how they can get their public speaking up and going. And I'm like, that's awesome. He said, what do you do? I help mentors get paid for their advice to get their message to the masses. And he's like, that is so cool. And somehow he was telling about his mentor, so I brought that up, and he started talking to me about my mentors. It's like, yeah, James Malinchuk just helped me to get a best-selling book. He's like, James Malinchuk, oh, that guy is on fire. Like, I know he has solid stuff, because he, back in the day, trained so many speakers to understand how to speak to the college market. I'm like, yeah, he's been doing it a long time. He's still going strong. And I've learned a lot from him. He's like, hey, if you're trained from James, I know you've got some solid stuff. I'm like, cool. And we were talking about Steve Larson and how he's my marketing mentor and things I've learned, a lesson I learned from him. He's like, Steve Larson is like, we're listening to a lot of the same people. Like, your mentors are my mentors. It's like, we definitely got to work together. Let's get together. Let's do something. So, because like this, we can't let this up. This is so cool. And instantly, literally within like 2 minutes of meeting a complete stranger, now has a strong bond. And he's a brother who has influence with the speakers. It's a perfect audience match for both of us. And now it opens the doors for new opportunities. But my point is, it's literally just by association of who mentored me that now people are like, oh, I like this. I shared my Enoch Leffingwell website, EnochLeffingwell.com website, with Steve Larson's staff member, and she was looking to give me some advice. And I was like, what was your favorite page? She's like, my favorite page is your list of mentors. Who mentored you? And I was like, why is that? She's like, because I recognize so many of these people, and these are people that I enjoy and I like, and it makes me realize that what you have to share is valuable. What you have to offer is rich because of the people you're associated with. You see that? And I'm like, that's some good feedback, but it's there by design, because your associations, you being associated with industry leaders, thought leaders, or category kings and category queens in your industry, automatically positions you as credibility and authority on that subject, that area of expertise. So these have been 5 credibility creators that you can use to increase the perception of expertise and authority in your niche. And when you are an authority or perceived as such, you will get paid more, you will have less trouble causing clients, you'll have more people coming to you like King Solomon, where you don't have to go out and hunt and chase down people, that they're actually going to be filling up your calendar, chasing you down and filling you up with people who are eager to pay you money, and they're easier to sell because they already know, like, and trust you. And when you apply these 5 credibility creators, it could really change the game for you. And I'm excited to see you to get your expertise and your advice out there, because it's when you are seen as a trusted advisor, when they trust your advice, they will receive your advice, they'll apply your advice, and they'll be transformed by your advice. And I want nothing more than to help you to get your message out to the masses so you can impact the lives of hundreds of thousands and millions of people who I otherwise couldn't without us collaborating together. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments what's part of this most resonated with you, or what you see as the first step that you're going to take in increasing the perception of expertise, whether that's clarity, whether that is getting your first or next book out, or whether that's collecting the testimonies of stories of your students who you've helped succeed. I'd love to know in the comments what part resonated, what are you going to do with that next. And remember to subscribe and follow us on social media so you get more messages just like this. Remember, friends, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called.